Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Behavioral Psychology here at Colorado Christian University. This video will go over the concepts and topics related to extinction within behavioral psychology. So the objectives after completing this video and your assigned reading will be to be able to define and provide examples of extinction, as well as a couple other terms, the extinction burst, spontaneous recovery, and then to discuss the factors that influence extinction, how quickly it will happen, how easily it might happen, how long it might take, etc. So first, we need to review the textbook definition here for our course. Milton Berger defines extinction as the phenomenon that occurs when a behavior that has been reinforced for a period of time, and we've reviewed the idea of reinforcement, is no longer reinforced, and therefore the behavior stops occurring. So when a person performs a behavior, and it does not have to be a problem behavior, but for sake of example, a problematic behavior is occurring and it's continuing to be reinforced by attention or by providing that person with the escape that they're seeking, etc. That reinforcement, as long as it continues, the behavior will probably continue to occur because it's working, quote unquote. When the reinforcement goes away and the person is no longer receiving the attention that they wanted or the escape that they were trying to obtain, for instance, the behavior will stop occurring. And when that behavior stops occurring, that's called extinction. If a behavior is reinforced on and off, however, the behavior will probably continue to occur. So in order to really create this extinction in a way that will last long term, we're going to truly need to remove that reinforcement. No more reinforcement for this behavior. If it's a problem behavior, that's really what we want to do. And then when behavior, as it states, when the reinforcement is cut off, the behavior eventually will stop occurring. So really the idea of extinction is going to be to most effectively remove that reinforcement and keep it removed so that the problem behavior occurrences will decrease and eventually stop. A few example scenarios for the idea of extinction as we review this topic. A popular one is the idea of somebody wanting to date somebody. For instance, if a person named Robbie wants to date Donna, but she's stopped answering his phone calls, and she also does not answer his text messages, he might try to get in touch with her for a while longer, so he may continue to call her if reaching out to contact her is the targeted behavior that we're talking about. He may continue to try to do that, but eventually he'll realize that it's not going to happen. She's not going to reply or respond or date him, and so he'll stop calling. That's the idea of the extinction. Her answering the phone, by the way, or responding to his text message, even if it's a brief response, would be reinforcement of his calling or texting behaviors. But this doesn't always have to be a problem behavior. So if Ken's behavior is that he stays late at work and does extra tasks in the workplace, but his pay is not raised, so the reinforcement is not happening, his supervisor is not thanking him, so those reinforcements are not occurring, or maybe they originally were and now they're not anymore. After a few months, he starts to go home each night at the scheduled time, so he might say, oh, my supervisor used to always thank me for staying late at work, but now he no longer thanks me and he doesn't acknowledge it or say anything, so why do it? And the reinforcement has been removed. So then he'll begin to go home on time. So the staying late at work behavior will stop. If George brings muffins to each staff meeting, he's trying to build rapport and make friends, but nobody's eating the muffins or thanking him. Or maybe, as in the example above, they were eating the muffins and they were thanking him, and then everybody went on a diet and they stopped. Let's say this goes on for 4 meetings. Nobody's eating the muffins and he has to take them home with him every night. Eventually, he'll no longer bring the muffins. So his behavior of bringing muffins to the meeting, which is no longer being reinforced because everyone's gone on a diet, now extinction is occurring. He's not bringing the muffins anymore. An extinction burst is another important term to understand as we discuss these topics. This is defined in the textbook as an increase in frequency, duration, or intensity of the unreinforced behavior during the extinction process. So we often see this as getting worse before it gets better, so to speak. If a child used to receive cookies whenever he screamed and cried for them, the parent then would implement an intervention, removing the reinforcement, so no longer giving a cookie for the screaming and crying behavior. So the screaming and crying is no longer working. The child may scream and cry even more loudly. The behaviors may increase in frequency and duration and intensity. And the child may be down on the floor kicking, and the screaming may be shrill and high-pitched and lengthy, hoping that the cookies will eventually come if I just turn up the heat on this behavior. That would be the extinction burst. We might see more of it before we see less of it in an attempt to access that reinforcement that was originally provided. Spontaneous recovery, if we're targeting a problem behavior, this is something that we're going to want to avoid. This would be the natural tendency for the behavior to occur again in a situation similar to those in which it occurred and was reinforced before the extinction took place. And that's the Miltenberger text definition. So if we go back to Robbie and Donna, he eventually stopped calling her. He realized she was not interested, but maybe on a holiday, or if he hears a song that reminds him of her, he might give her a call. So on occasion, the behavior might still occur, even though it's nearly gone completely. If she were to pick up the call, even 6 months or a year or 2 years later, this would reinforce his calling behavior by giving him the attention and the response that he was always looking for all along. And so when this reinforcement occurs, even after a long period of time, the behavior then probably would increase because of the reinforcement of Donna picking up the phone call. So we have to be careful not to allow that reinforcement to occur in the future, even after extinction process is already done with. There's still potential for spontaneous recovery if reinforcement is presented. And then we do want to keep in mind some factors that influence extinction and how quickly it might work, how long it might take. If the behavior was continuously reinforced beforehand, so we think about the parent with the cookie, let's say that the parent provided the child a cookie every single time that he cried and screamed. That would be a quick decrease after extinction or after the reinforcement is taken away, because the child thinks to himself, each time I cry and scream, I get a cookie. And then suddenly I cry and scream and I don't get a cookie. So even if an extinction burst occurs in the beginning, the behavior will probably decrease much more quickly. However, if the behavior was intermittently reinforced, so the child sometimes would get a cookie for crying and screaming and sometimes not. Let's say that if the parent was really stressed and the child was screaming and crying, the parent said, okay, fine, you can have a cookie. But on a good day, the parent would not comply and give the cookie for the behavior. This is going to take the behavior will take a longer time to decrease. It will be more gradual in decrease because the reinforcement appears to go away, but the child might always be wondering, well, if I just do it one more time, or if I just catch my mom when she's stressed, or if I just scream a little bit louder, will the cookie be provided? So it leaves some question when there was intermittent reinforcement of the behavior before the extinction intervention was put into place. So the two factors that we always want to examine and keep in mind when we're looking at extinction as an intervention, trying to get that extinction to occur, we're looking at frequency of the reinforcement before extinction. So was I giving the cookie to the child every single time, or was I only sometimes? And then any reinforcement that occurs after the extinction. So just like in the example of calling Donna, did she pick up a year later when he called? And if she did, then this reinforcement could be a factor in whether the extinction will continue or whether the behavior might start to occur again. Continue to review the assigned textbook chapters for this session in Miltenberger, and please reach out with any questions. I hope that this video was helpful to you. God bless you.